Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies, and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by M.A. Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, drive a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode. We have a theme of Dance of October for this episode. Although one of our two poems doesn't mention dancing, and the other doesn't mention October, how are we connecting these two works to that theme? Well, my brain said, put them together. And here we are. The first poem is by African-American poet Paul Laurence Dunbar. He's rarely anthologized anymore, but that doesn't mean he should be neglected. He's an excellent writer with diverse style in different forms, including prose and plays, and his verse elevates him above the one-trick ponies who are studied because they represent a type and can be slotted into a category. For example, Louise May Alcott. Our other poem is a lesser-known work by the famous William Butler Yeats. Let's do Dunbar first. 1872 to 1906, a significant date. He precedes the Harlem Renaissance poets like County Cullen and Langston Hughes. Maybe that's the reason he's neglected. He's not easily categorized. He transcends category. Famed Frederick Douglass named Dunbar one of the sweetest songsters of his time. A line from his poem Sympathy is very famous. I know why the caged bird sings. His October is a master poem. 3 stanzas of 8 lines each of iambic pentameter without the usual twisted phrases and contracted syllables and skipped out words that mark lesser attempts at metrical verse. Dunbar's lines are smooth as silk, rich with imagery, brimming with strong word choice. Like Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, he makes writing a metered line look easy. Only Robert Frost is a better practitioner that I know, managing to make his lines conversational as well as smooth. Dunbar begins his poem October with personification and works this comparison easily through the first stanza. October is the treasurer of the year, and all the months pay bounty to her store. The fields and orchards still their tribute to bear, and fill her brimming coffers more and more. But she, with youthful lavishness, spends all her wealth in gaudy dress, and decks herself in garments bold of scarlet, purple, red, and gold. Like the last episode, October by Helen Hunt Jackson, October is lavish and freely spending of her wealth. Every line of the first stanza contains a reference to wealth. Dunbar's October is a lady treasurer with deep coffers. However old she may be, the 10th month of the 12, she has a youthful lavishness. Not for her the solemn colors of age. She bedecks herself in every color, eager to wear them and celebrate the joy of the world. She has wealth because all the months have had to give a tithe to her. All the growth of spring and summer ripened during her harvest time. An excellent return for their labor. We can imagine her visiting her vaults to withdraw bright-colored coins that she flings into the world. It's the second stanza that brought dancing into my mind. She heedeth not how swift the hours fly, that smiles and sings her happy life along. She only sees above a shining sky. She only hears the breeze's voice in song. I can see her, can't you? Spinning round and round, bare arms lifted to the blue heavens, the skirt of her multicolored dress swirling with her, glorying in the loveliness of the gift of days of October. The remaining lines of stanza 2 give us a sedate October. Her garments trail the woodlands through and gather pearls of early dew that sparkle till the roguish sun creeps up and steals them every one. A lovely image of peace, with only the sun, the dominant force of nature, daring to steal the pearls of dew from her garments. The theft by the sun does not matter to October, as we see in the last lines of stanza 3. But what cares she that jewels should be lost when all of nature's bounteous wealth is hers? Though princely fortunes may have been their cost, not one regret her calm demeanor stirs. She can afford the loss of a few pearls, for all of nature's bounteous wealth is hers. The cost doesn't matter. She has more wealth. Remember, princely fortunes may have been the cost of her pearls, but not one regret does she have at the loss of them. Even the darkest of times cannot affect her joys. Not one regret her calm demeanor stirs. Wholehearted, happy, careless, free, she lives her life out joyously. We envy that catalogue of her blithe joy, don't we? And those dark times, the revelatory reality that comes to all, these do not affect October. The months end with the heavy frost that herald winter's death. These do not distract from her joy in life, nor cares when frost stalks o'er her way and turns her auburn locks to gray. And so should we all be, celebrating the bounty God gives us, sharing far and wide, flinging our coins from the hoard, for hoard does nothing to give us joy. It shrinks our hearts, closing our hands into a tight fist and leaving us shivering with loneliness. Yeats' poem begins with the same blithe joy before it turns dark, and even though it attempts to drag itself out of the shadows, it doesn't quite achieve that. And here's our first lesson for all writers, especially when contrasting characters. Dunbar's life was much darker than Yeats', yet he focuses on joy and happiness, even with death bringing its cold touch. Yeats was born into a wealthy family, with a father who could choose a career in art rather than law. Yet his focus turns quickly to death. With your characters of a poor, hard-working background, they will seek merriness over blackness. Those who have not experienced tragedy and stomach-empty times often dwell morbidly on the worst life can offer. Consider this disparity not only when writing main characters, but also with group characters. They need not clash, just be different. I am minded of the dozen prisoners given a second chance in the film Dirty Dozen. Most took any opportunity to find a way to joke around and laugh. The fact that they laughed at those in authority only made them relish their laughs even more, and made the foolish-looking authority figures hate them even more, for authority cannot bear to look foolish. But I'm way off topic at this point. Time for a close examination of Yeats' poem To a Child Dancing in the Wind. By the way, ain't the mind a strange thing, connecting these two poems? Or maybe my mind is just strange naturally. To a Child is not broken into stanza. 12 lines in length. This is not a rondo prime of the French language, composed as a septet then a cinquain, or any of the variations of the rondo, including the rondine. We have a rhyme scheme, a simple pattern like A-B, across 3 quatrains. Yet we can't even land here. The second quatrain begins a bit of trickery. Wet goes easily with yet, the first rhyme, while the second rhyme is known to one. This is a slant rhyme or visual rhyme, for it certainly isn't a pure rhyme. Here at line 8, Yeats brings dissonance into his rhyme scheme. In the third quatrain, he does it again. The first rhyme is pure, the second is only visual, definite disharmony. as he matches bind to wind. The text of the poem would appear to divide us into a cinquain and a septet. Do we have a reversed rondo prime? Or do we actually have two cinquains and a closing couplet, two lines standing beside themselves to form a question? Or is that an illusion? Illusion. Because end punctuation gives us a triplet, a 7-line septet, and an ending couplet. I would land here, but the title reminds me that our dance is on the shore, on the shifting sands, and the two dissonant rhymes clue me into Yeats' play with shifting sounds. And now we have shifting context, the illusion of firmness, not actual firmness. We are not to stand still as the waves drain back to the sea, taking with it the sand and all firm footing. We are to shift, or the description of the same action, to dance. Dancing serves us best. Let's follow Yeats' signal with a punctuation and read the opening triplet, which ends with a question mark. Dance there upon the shore. What need have you to care for wind or water's roar? Who's dancing? Let's not forget our title, a child, innocent, carefree, in the moment, glorying in being alive, glorying in movement, much like Dunbar's October gloried in her moment. She had the 9 months of experience to back her, yet she was lavish because of her lived life. This child doesn't have the experience of the pains and pangs of life. She scraped a knee, pinched a finger, but little more, little of burdensome consequence. The gusty wind, the roar of the ocean's waves, they merely add to her experience. Now we pick up the next 2 lines, connected to this opening triplet with a conjunction and with the continuing context of the first thought. And tumble out your hair that the salt drops have wet. These 2 lines are separated from the next by a semicolon. They belong with the first, but they also belong with the next lines. And Yeats wants us keeping these connections in their constant shift, as the sea is in constant movement and is the dancing child. This is a good lesson for writers of prose, fiction, and nonfiction, when we have connected ideas that are the same yet separate. Have the idea stop, then continue on with its connection, showing that progression is also of transition. This transition begins with a hint of the coming trouble. The salty seawater has soaked the child's hair, which must be washed out with fresh water. Not now, though. Now is the time for enjoyment. Yet we readers have reached the disillusionment that centers Yeats' poem. Being young, you have not known the fool's triumph, nor yet love lost as soon as won, nor the best laborer dead, and all the sheaves to bind. The fool's triumph, declaring victory too soon, only to have victory crumble into defeat, which adds humiliation to the fool's too early celebration. Love lost as soon as won, another twisting circumstance. That which we most hope for and long for is gone before we realize it, the chance lost for some mysterious reason. And finally, the best laborer dead with work yet to do, and no one to step into his place. Interestingly, with Yeats, 2 of these 3 direful problems seem obviously not personal to the speaker. They are the speaker looking upon the world. The speaker sees the fool suffer when expecting a crown. The speaker would have hired the best laborer. Now he has to hire 2 or 3 in the man's place to make up the work. He's out money, a severe trial for him apparently, but nothing like the dead man's family coping with his loss. And these 2 second-hand experiences make the reader wonder about the third. Has the speaker also never experienced love and lost love? Has he merely been a spectator of troubles? We think so. In looking on, the speaker can only guess at the actual emotion. He deludes himself in his imagination that he stands on firm ground. Oh, but the last direful trouble, that is personal for the speaker. What need have you to dread the monstrous crying of the wind? The child has no need to dread this, but the speaker does, and he trembles at the monstrous crying of wind. We have a hint of age here, like Dunbar's autumn locks turned to gray. Those three descriptions now make greater sense. Who is the unknowing fool, celebrating a victory too soon, but a youth at competition? Love won and lost is a young man, lonely as he looks back in his old age at what he hoped for but didn't receive. And it's a middle-aged man concerned with his farm and profits and his workers and what must be done to prepare for winter. That same man shifted through time, unable to stand still, for time is constantly moving. We have three images of his past life and the greatest image of what he fears still to come. The monstrous crying of the wind. The speaker is dreading the banshee, wailing of his coming death. He fears it. This crying of the wind, this monstrous crying of the wind, is an oblique description of that which should remain unnamed. And he envies the child dancing on the shore. Yeats gives us a poem of reality constantly shaped by our illusions and disillusionment and delusions, as unstable as the sand on the shore. And with the child we can only dance, a constant shift to find stable footing that is merely temporary. Yeats' poem opens up only when we delve into it, our understanding shifting as often as the dancing child. Dunbar gives us an entertaining poem personifying October as an uber-rich lady who flings out her largesse. Both poems are just to celebrate life. For writers, such lessons are at the heart of all our writing, whether we fill our writing with direful troubles or lyrical descriptions evoking beauty. Both appeal to readers, often the same reader, at different times of life. Remember, backgrounds of characters form their circumstance, but also their outlook, often in unexpected ways. Use progression of ideas, breaks, spacing, and punctuation to set off disparate ideas that are still connected. And never forget, all writing inherently carries messages to our readers, messages that we may not even see until months or years later. Keep communication clear, words powerful, images strong, and emotions heartfelt. And write on. Every writer is after memorable writing, whatever will strengthen our words and ideas so they haunt our audience. We want our audience to return again and again to our writing, either to recapture that original impact or to puzzle out a question that wasn't answered, capture our audience, and they stay with our writing to the end. Satisfy our audience, and they seek more of our writing. This is our goal. Win-win, us and them. Our series, Fall into Poetry, would seem to appeal only to poets, but that's a surface glance. We writers can learn from any writing style, poetry teaching fiction, dramas teaching nonfiction, any mix-up we can contemplate. Join the Right Focus all through autumn as we examine great poems that teach a multitude of lessons for all writers. Thanks for listening to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mind your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.